Thank you, Matthew. It's been said that the greatest span of distance anyone has ever crossed is just 18 inches. Just 18 inches. It's not the biggest gap. It's not as big as the Grand Canyon, not as wide and expansive as the Atlantic Ocean. Just 18 inches. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? That's right. The span from your head to your heart. The French philosopher Blaise Pascal said, "The heart has its reasons which the mind knows nothing of." Life is just not as simple as trying to and easily to reasoning out how to connect the head and the heart. There are interior motives, inspiring life-altering moments, hidden strength. All those things come into play. It's hard sometimes to get the head and the heart doing the same thing. But the goal of any religion is to exactly do that, to unite those two, to unite our head and our heart, to help us to move from living in these divided lines of our head and our heart. When we come together and we gather and worship God, we come together to be grounded and rooted in God's love. I think of God's love as the soil from which we stand. And if you think of life or each of us in a metaphor like a tree, as we are grounded in God's love, we grow like a tree, and a tree has what? Like branches and leaves, right? And those branches and leaves, when they grow and grounded in God's love, provide a canopy for others, provide shade for others. And that's kind of what we're talking about today, providing shade for others. Lord Powell grew up as a minister's son and recognized that when a scout includes God and service to others in their life, they live a better life. It's a life well lived. Along these lines, John Wesley is the founder of the United Methodist Church, and here at Newmarket Community Church, we have 3 different denominations at our core: the United Methodists, American Baptists, and the United Church of Christ. So John Wesley is important to us. We care about what he says. And what he says is that the outgrowth of Christian discipleship is this: do all the good you can by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. That's a tall order, isn't it? A really tall order, but that is at the root of our faith. Let's talk about what's at the root of scouting. The Scout Law. Now, the Scout Law has 12 points, and each one of those points is a goal for every scout. And a scout, of course, tries to live by the law every single day, and it's not easy, it's hard, but I'm going to invite every single scout here, whether you're used to be a scout, whoever. I know some of you who are here that aren't part of the current scouting program, but used to be a scout at one time in your life. I'm going to invite you all to stand up and recite the Scout Law with me. Ready? All right. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Thank you. Let's talk about reverence for a minute. That's a lot to remember. I needed notes to remember it. I saw all you guys, and you guys right up front. I mean, you all just have it memorized so well. I needed to look at my notes, so I'm proud of you. I have to be as good as you. I'm going to work on that. But let's talk about reverence for a minute. There's something about reverence that's a 2-point. It's a give and take, right? The idea of reverence isn't just that a scout honors their own faith tradition, although that's incredibly important, right? A scout has a faith tradition, they honor their own faith tradition, but what else is part of being reverent? Anyone want to call that one out? To honor the tradition of others. It's a 2-point piece to being reverent. It isn't just about honoring what your family has for a faith tradition, but it's about honoring mine and all of your brothers and sisters, all of your friends, all of your friends in scouting, to honor their traditions too. And that is so important. Sometimes that doesn't happen. as much as we'd like to see. Sometimes people are told, well, it's only my way is right. The only way to be right with God is my way of doing it. And that's not what a Scout believes. That's not what we believe here either. That we honor each other's faith traditions, experiences of life, which is why we start every service with, no matter who you are or where you are on your journey of life, you're welcome here, and we're happy to see you. So there are some other faith traditions that have similar ideas to us. We heard in the story today that Matthew read about serving others. And before I get a little bit more into that, a little bit more deeply, I want to share some other faith traditions and what they say about serving others. So the Baha'i faith, and last I knew there's a Baha'i group in Elliott, Maine. I used to be the pastor in Elliott, and I knew that there was a Baha'i group there. Blessed are those who prefer others before themselves. Buddhism, hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Christianity. This is the sum of all duty. Treat others as you yourself would be treated. That's Hinduism. Not one of you is a believer until you desire for another that which you desire for yourself. That's Islam. In happiness and suffering, in joy and grief, regard all creatures as you would regard your own self. Jainism. What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. Judaism. In our story today from the Gospel of Matthew, we hear a parable told by Jesus. Do you guys know what, you guys are like right here, I can't help but talking to you. You're probably never going to sit in front again. That's why most people who come to church sit in the back. It's a thing. It's good that you're not listening to that. But so, do you guys know what a parable is? Does anyone? Do you guys know what a parable, what is it? It's a story, right? So Jesus was telling this story. But you ever notice that it's really fun to hear stories? I don't know about you, but I love telling stories, I love hearing stories, and sometimes it's the best way to learn is to hear a story. So Jesus used stories all the time, and that's what Matthew read for us today. It was a parable. It was a story that Jesus was telling, and he was telling about what it's like to serve others and how important it is to serve others. And he gave examples in that story of serving others when he talked about feeding the hungry, healing the sick, giving clothes to those who had nothing to wear. It was a story. Now, sometimes we talk about how we read these stories, and sometimes people read them literally and think, well, okay, as long as I'm feeding the sick, I'm good, right? I mean, feeding the hungry. You could feed the sick too. The story is a parable. The idea is service. So while some of us do feed the hungry and serve in the ways that are very much around giving clothing to people who need it, or food to people who are hungry, or healing and medicine to those who are sick, those aren't the only ways to serve, but they're good examples of service. I have a story that I heard about a scout that I thought was really an interesting story. This is a parable too, in a way. So you might have already heard it. I'm probably not the first to have found this one. So this is a story about a boy who found the power of service. A 13-year-old boy, a scout named Frank Wilson. You guys know this story already? Oh yeah, I see some nods. The story takes place on Christmas Eve. Frank was really sad and depressed because he was celebrating Christmas for the first time without his brother Steve. You see, his brother Steve had passed away because he was in a car accident. It was really hard for Frank, particularly because he and his brother Steve were really close. So on that Christmas Eve afternoon, Frank was just feeling so sad, and the weight of everything was just on his shoulders. And he just needed to get out of the house. He needed to get away from everything Christmas in that moment because it was just making him sad. He put on his new winter jacket that he had just got for Christmas. He put all of his Christmas gifts onto his new sled, tied them down, and he just began to walk. As he went through a rundown section of town, Frank looked in the window of a house and saw a woman who was crying. And he felt like it looked like she was as sad and depressed as he was. On impulse, Frank knocked on the door and told the woman, "Choose any of the presents here in my sled for your children." The lady was astounded and said, "Why, God bless you." And she selected some candies, a game, a toy, an airplane, and a flashlight. As he was about to leave, she asked his name. And Frank answered, "Just call me the Christmas Scout." Frank left with an unexpected flicker of joy in his heart. He finally felt like some of the sadness just lifted, even if it was for a minute. He just felt a little piece of joy. He hadn't felt joy since his brother died. And he realized he wasn't finished. Along the way, he found other people who needed his help. And he gave the rest of his gifts away, including his new winter jacket. And then Frank made his way home, and he knew he was in trouble. And sure enough, his parents were a little upset about Frank's erratic behavior. They didn't really understand what he was up to. They didn't really get it. They worked hard for those presents that they gave to Frank, and they were happy to give those presents to him, and he had just given them all away. They thought that maybe he had ruined Christmas. He just made some bad choices. But Frank was confused. Here he felt good for the first time in months, and his parents were mad. He thought he had done the right thing, and that he did a good turn, that he was living out his duty to God. He just didn't expect it. The next morning, though, on TV, the local news station reported, "Crippled boy has a new sled. Another young boy has a fine winter jacket." And several families reported that their children were made happy last night by gifts from a teenage boy who simply called himself the Christmas Scout. As Frank's parents took a moment to take in that message, they realized that actually Frank had made that one of the best Christmases ever for their family. And that's what's happened. That's a great story of what happens when we serve other people, when we think beyond ourselves and give generously. We experience blessing upon blessing. We've been talking a lot here at the church over the last several weeks about our spiritual gifts, and these are gifts that we believe everyone has from God. And we've been talking about how we can help each other find our spiritual gifts to serve and to grow and to be kind to other people and to find a way to serve the church. And so one way of finding your spiritual gifts is by serving other people. Serving helps us to experience miracles, to watch people as we move together from sadness to joy, as we heard in the story with Frank. Serving helps us simply to be more like Jesus, to put other people before ourselves, to think more about other people's needs. And this is one of my favorites. Serving surrounds us with some really awesome people who love to serve. I told you at the beginning of the service that there's 17 of us going to Guatemala in a couple of weeks. And want to know what one of the best things is when we go to Guatemala? It's being in that group of people who really love to serve, who went out of their way and experienced some hardship to serve other people. It's one of the most powerful things. Serving increases our faith. Serving is just simply good for your soul. And in reality, sometimes, though, we make all sorts of excuses for not serving, don't we? If we're honest. Thank you for being honest. Right? We all do it. I do it too sometimes. I'm just too tired. I'm not in the mood. I don't feel like it. What else? What else do you guys say? I don't know how. None of my friends are going to be there. I don't want to do that. I'm nervous. I don't know how to talk to that person. Any other complaints? Anything else that gets in your way? I can name it for you if it'd help you. Because this is one of those times when I was saying, when the scripture is literal, it's really talking about more than just feeding the hungry people and giving clothes to people who don't have enough clothes. These excuses I just listed, just because your excuse isn't on the list doesn't mean it doesn't count. It still counts. So we get in our own way of serving sometimes. It happens. We're human. But today I have a challenge for you, and I'm really kind of excited about it. I have a challenge that's not Scout-specific, church. It's everyone-specific. It's not age-specific. It's not for the Tigers or the Eagles or anyone in between. It's for all of us. But I'm hoping the Tigers will help me share it with you. Do you guys think you could pass some of these out for me? You can get up. This is your chance to work out some wiggles. Run around and pass these out to people. So there you go. So this is the NCC Scout Sunday Kindness Challenge. And on this paper, make sure you get both sides of the room. Don't let anyone off the hook. There you go. I'll leave those when you're ready. The NCC Kindness Challenge, and how wonderful the Tigers are already serving and rising to the challenge. And each one of you get a beautiful moment as the Tiger gives you that calendar or challenge. But I have listed here, and don't you worry, those of you at home, I will send this out. You're not off the hook either. You get to have this too. But I challenge you to focus on kindness. Kindness is a way of service. There are things on this challenge that maybe are more things that a parent would do. Maybe there are more things that a child would do, or maybe there are things that parents and children can do together. Maybe there's only one thing you could find that you would want to do on here, then do it 30 times. You will be blessed. And you will bless others. So are you guys ready for the Scout Sunday Kindness Challenge? Will you participate this month? Yes, I hope. I want to invite you to go to our Facebook page, go to my Facebook page, send me an email. You'll find my email address in the program, and share about the Kindness Challenge. Let me know what you did, how it felt, what the experience was like for you. But I invite you to share in the Kindness Challenge and to make a difference. I know you can. I know that each one of you has a gift to share. And if you're struggling to find what your gift may be, you're not sure how to start, I can help you with that. Love to help you with that. May it be so, my friends. God bless you, and thank you.